All right, let's take a look at how to scroll through a page to get elements to load. There are a number of different things you can do, but I found the most effective thing is actually to identify the elements that you need to get to load and specifically scroll to them. So in JavaScript, there is a scroll to feature, which is scrolling to a position on the page. And it's decent, right? So let's do it. Windows scroll to, and we'll say we're going to scroll to, I don't know, like 1,000 pixels, right? So we scroll down to that position, which works, right? We can run that, but if we run it again, you see it's still at that same position. And so we need to know the dimensions of that page then prior to building the script to make these scrolls, which is possible to do, but there's an easier way to go about it. So first, let's find the elements that we need to scroll to here. So in this case, we're wanting these elements to load. So there's a couple scenarios that you might run into. One, it just may be that these elements do not yet exist, which is not the case here. But the other might be that these elements, the elements are there, but they're not yet filled out, which is the case here. So you see this is the last element that has information in it. And then we get down to this element, which doesn't have any information in it. And you can see these class names are different, right? So in this case, we have profile list, border, bottom, ember view, and this is the same class name, but then it has an additional class name called profile list occlusion area. So really what we want to do is target that occlusion area in this instance. And so if we can get, if we can scroll to those, you can see that they will load, right? Every time we scroll to them. And now it looks like all of them have loaded. So how can we replicate that with a script? Let's write a couple functions here. They need to be async functions. So we'll say a function page scroller. I don't know. And here we will say target elms. And then we'll say document get elements by class name and the class name we want. Now in this instance, we only really need this piece of the class name. And then we want to loop through. So we're going to say for let I equal 0. I is less than target elms length. I++. And then here, what we'll do is that we will run another function that scrolls to that element. We maybe could keep it as one function, but I think it's worthwhile to segment things out into different functions so that you can kind of start thinking in that manner if you're not already doing so. So here, let's go create a new function. Scroll to target, and this is going to be the target element that we pass through. And then here we'll say scroll into view. So this is a JavaScript function. So let's look at the documentation for this. The element interface scroll into view method scrolls the element's parent container such that the element which scroll into view is called is visible to the user. So basically it's just wherever you're at in the page, now you're looking at the target element. And here you can pass through some arguments. So we can say, and I recommend doing this, especially this behavior smooth. It's going to make for a better experience for you and your users. So I'm just going to straight copy this and see what it does. Let's see. So we want to do scroll into view. All right, we can put our delay in here. So let me grab a function so I don't have to type it. All right, so the two functions I'm putting in here. So these are listed as variables, but they're variable functions. This one's rando. This just gets you a random number. Delay is a shorthand for setting a timeout function. And so here, what we'll do is we'll say delay. Well, first we need to say await delay. And we will say, I don't know, wait a little over a half a second. And then, yeah, it'll return once that await is complete. So then here, we can paste in scroll to target. And then we can say target elms, and then the current iteration. And we'll say await, so that that loop stops until this comes back after the delay, right? So let's give it a shot and see how it goes. Seems to have worked. Let's take a look and see if there are still any unrevealed elements. It looks like not. It looks like all of them were revealed. When I was playing around with this yesterday, it was not revealing all of them. So if that happens, where you maybe still have a couple of hanging left, what you could do is you could call this element down here again, and you don't want to say target elms, because this target elms is will have already been assigned, right? So this, regardless of whether or not these have changed in the DOM, it's still going to read as the length that it was initially, right? So if this had 5 in it initially, it's still going to be 5 elements. Now those class names may have changed, but this is still going to represent those 5 elements. And so we can't just call that again. What we need to do is run this function again, get elements by class name, and figure out, are there any more of these left? And so we could say length, or actually even better than that, let's create a new variable. Next target, right? Get rid of the length, and then we could just say if next targets dot length. So if there's still any remaining, then let's just run that function again. Same thing. There's a few different ways we could do this, but we're going to do it like this for now, right? And then just run this whole thing again. Also, this inline nearest, I'm going to change it to end, because nearest is actually going to stop it a little bit prematurely. So it'll stop it at the top of the elements. So I'm going to put end. And let's see. I guess I'm not using this rando thing in this case. I'm going to get rid of it. All right, let's run this again. Okay, so yeah, that's it. It looks like it didn't need to run it again. It's probably because I'm zoomed in a bit here, or because I have a bigger screen here than on the other machine I was using. Really, this isn't the right solution either for that instance where you still have things left over. You need some sort of recursion. So you'd really probably want to create a third function that has a while loop. So you could say, I don't know, like, well, let's just do it. Actually, no, I'm not going to, because while loops can get you in trouble. And honestly, I recommend just staying the fuck away from while loops. And well, if you've got anything going on in your browser that you don't want to lose anyway, which I do, I'm running a function that's going to take another hour to complete in my browser, and I do not feel like crashing my browser right now. So we won't do that, but you could create another function that would say something like, you create a while loop basically, and then create another variable above that while loop or outside of it. And then as you're looping through the while loop, every iteration, you'll want to recall this profile list occlusion area and check to see whether or not it has any length. And if it does, then you want to break the while loop. And then that would get you kind of a better solution here. Yeah, anyway, someone reached out to me who was trying to figure this sort of thing out. So I figured it might be worthwhile to walk through the process of it in a video. But yeah, I'd be interested in seeing any other solutions you all might have for scrolling. There's a lot of different approaches. I've found that scroll into view is really the one that works best for me, but maybe you have some other solutions.